New world lines was discovered.
Holy shit.
Holy shit. All right, well, we're going to do Kurisu chapter, but who else did we unlock here? We unlocked a ghostly rendezvous in Suzuha route. Built with love in Mr. Braun route, MR. And superhero shot noir in Ferris Nyan Nyan route. Excellent. You ready? You ready to?
I'm ready.
The Vermilion Soteria.
I'm ready.
I'm not gonna pretend I know how to pronounce that correctly. If you know how to pronounce that correctly, make sure to go to the comment section and have a big fit. Or don't. You can politely correct us too if you want to. You don't have to like drag us, but like I won't. I get it.
A dark space. Where am I? What is this place? Why am I here? Wait, am I even... My head throbs lightly. I look to my left and to my right, but I can't see a thing. Just a dark space, pitch black. There's no sound but the ticking of a clock. Am I in a sensory deprivation tank? No, I don't remember entering one, and if I had, I wouldn't be able to hear anything. And I can still hear the eerie sound of a clock. Tick, tock. I try to calm myself down and search my memories for answers. But my head is still unclear. Everything is foggy. To start with, who am I? I ask myself, but I can't remember anything. The sound of the clock is so strangely unsettling. I want to ignore it, but the harder I try, the worse it gets. It's scrambling my thoughts. Just why? This isn't one of Okabe's stupid pranks, is it? No, he wouldn't do anything this crazy. Huh? Okabe. Who is that?
Even in this state, you still remember that name, do you?
Eh? Me? A female figure appeared before my eyes.
Look, it's the Steam artwork.
Even with my uncertain memories, I was convinced that the figure standing before me was me.
So, you understand at least this much, don't you, Makise Kurisu?
Makise Kurisu? At that moment, a torrent of images rushed into my brain. 11 years ago, on my birthday, when I upset my dad and shattered our relationship. My mama taking me with her as she moved to America. Working brutally hard to graduate college early and working as a researcher at Victor Condoria University's Neuroscience Institute. This year, when Papa, real name Shoichi Makise, publicly known as Dr. Nakabachi, sent me a letter saying he will hold a press conference to commemorate the completion of his time machine. Temporarily returning to Japan as a sort of reverse exchange student at a Japanese high school, and then, huh?
What's the matter? You don't remember? You don't remember what happened next?
I came to Japan and was murdered by my papa. No, that's not it. I met that weird person in the lab coat at the lecture, and... No. I met that person in the white robe before Papa murdered me. My memories became convoluted.
Is this what reading Steiner is like to someone who's like in the nexus of it?
Multiple intersecting memories tangle up inside my head. I ended up being friends with Okabe, even though he initially annoyed me at the ATF lecture. That's right, I remember. Okabe Rintaro. It all started when he began claiming that I was a ghost and that I should be dead already.
Listen, I don't know how ghosts have become corporeal, but this is freaking me the fuck out, and you should be freaked out too.
Can I be freaked out if I'm a ghost? Do they do that?
I don't know. Wouldn't you like to know the answer to that question?
And then at the lecture, he disputed the theory that time machines cannot be made with the technology available to us in this timeline.
Time machines are fake. Prove it. That's right, you can't. Quaderum demonstratum, bitch.
Which caught my interest, so I went to visit his lab. And they really were making a time machine. That's right. Humans couldn't travel to the past in flesh, but they were able to send mails to the past. D-mail. That's right. Then we repeated the D-mail experiment to verify whether we could send a message to the past to change it. Then, over the course of our experiments, Okabe and I...
You seem to have remembered quite a bit. So, can you remember what you were doing just now?
Now? What was I doing just now? Actually, that leads me back to my original questions. Just, what is this place? And why am I here? Thinking rationally, the most reasonable explanation is that this is a dream and I am currently asleep. As far as I can remember, I was staying up all night upgrading the phone wave. I was trying to make a more advanced time machine that could not only D-mail to the past, but send people's memories as well. But now that I think of it, I don't remember falling asleep. If this is a daydream, it's unusual for it to have taken over my senses to this extent.
You're on the right track, but you're also incorrect.
How could it be both? Wouldn't that mean I'm just wrong?
Oh, very like you. Always demanding such black and white answers.
If there's no right or wrong in terms of the words we use to communicate, the meanings we assign to them lose their value. Isn't that only natural?
Yes, you're right. You should be just as you are, even in the coming story that you will soon experience.
Story? What is she saying?
You are in a spin-off game.
Oh, fuck. Most dreams tend to be an incoherent mishmash of ideas, which makes the relatively logical through line of this conversation all the more strange. Even if my brain is producing this dialogue by association with external stimuli, there are still many odd factors.
There's no need to be so deeply concerned. You should just accept things as they are and simply be as you are. Just simply accept everything that is put before you. That is all that is asked of you. The story may be like a mirage, your memories vanishing the moment that you leave this place, or it may be some sort of illusion. Perhaps it's a vision of something that never existed. An unexplored possibility.
A fragment?
Yeah, that's a good word for it. I have to put that one aside for later. Regardless, now that you are here, you have both the right and responsibility to see it through to its end.
What do you mean?
August 13th. On August 13th, 2010, at 2:06 p.m., this is where our story starts. And it concludes at 5:34 p.m. the same day.
Do I get like refreshments or popcorn?
There will be no intermission.
Huh? My consciousness jolts in reaction to the date, the time. A time not in my memory. But for some reason, deep inside my heart, I felt shaken. My consciousness fades. The sound of the clock won't leave my ears.
The wheels of time, they draw an infinite spiral that eventually loops back to whence it came. I should know full well where their trails lead.
Have I finished that series? I thought I dropped off after book 4.
Yeah, they're all kind of door stoppers, right? You get through the first one and you're like, oh, I can keep, and then it's just very exhausting. It turns out, like, nothing against the author, right? It's just like, it wasn't for me. Anyway, that's why you must confirm things for yourself and save it all. Save yourself. Save him.
Wait a minute, you can't just force me to...
No take backsies.
My consciousness rapidly clouds. The sound of the clock gets louder, as if to consume my thoughts. My awareness flakes away as the bell rings. It's like I'm falling asleep. Or rather, waking from a dream. And then I... Done. Connecting the last two cables, I declared my success to the lab mems, and especially Okabe. I have successfully upgraded the phone wave, creating what may be the world's first
time machine. That means something different.
Yeah, capable of sending not only information through time, but humans themselves. I improved the D-mail functionality, the technology that lets us send information to the past via email, to allow us to compress the human consciousness to 36 bytes and send it to the past.
I don't know if I'm hungry enough for that, though. Can you make it even small? I can maybe, I just had lunch, so...
Of course, the sender and the receiver must be the same person, and we can only send their consciousness. Or, to be more specific, their memories.
Oh, so memories are equivalent to consciousness, are they? Interesting philosophical...
And only take up 36 bytes.
Wow.
Taking the big swings here in cognitive science.
Kurusu looks at those 90% of your brain is unused people and says, you are like small children.
Watch this. Nonetheless, this machine represents humanity's first steps into the realm of time travel. I believe we may have just created something extraordinary. That's right, we've created a power that can transcend the law of causality and change the world. Everyone here understood the weight of what we'd done. And so, though we were in the presence of this tremendous invention, none of us expressed even a hint of excitement. I've done something terrible. My chest is filled with dread. I followed my personal impulses to test my theory and bring my idea into being. Propelled by my lab mem's shared passion, I pressed onward with my creation. But now that it's completed, I'm completely overwhelmed. Initially, I had a feeling that I shouldn't create a time machine. The very existence of a time machine defies common sense. It holds the power to rewrite history, to change the past, present, and future. Our world is governed by the rule of cause and effect, but a time machine completely breaks this rule. In the event of a failure, one can travel back in time to remove the cause of said failure, thus ensuring that it never happens. A disruption would be the same. Travel to the past, divert or eliminate the interruption, and you can complete what you're working on undistracted. This is akin to holding the power of a god in your hands, militarily and politically at least. Scientifically, its value is immeasurable.
I can measure it. It's like maybe 1.5 feet. like lengthwise. Depthwise, it's more like 2 feet.
Taking the bold swings on value, too.
Hey, I just go with what I can quantify, all right?
Which is precisely why this technology must not be allowed to exist. The power of a time machine would be too much for humanity to handle in a more civilized future, let alone now.
Which is why I brought my time machine repair kit. Pulls out shotgun.
Temporal repair kit. Your timeline fixed immediately or your money back. Blam. Works equally well on time machines and time travelers.
How'd you even get a sawed-off in Japan?
The rockets and nuclear weapons of the 20th century were the same way. The small number of people who controlled these technologies created an imbalance of power on the world stage. Even in the 21st century, the scars of that imbalance still remain. Scars that restrict scientists such as myself to this day. But now, I've created this. I've created a time machine. For no reason other than I wanted to see if I could. I understood how dangerous it could be and even feared it, I rejected the very idea that it could exist, but even then, I was driven by my curiosity about the unknown and my desire as a researcher to push the bounds of possibility. The same motivators that led me here, to the Future Gadget Laboratory in the first place. When I saw the experiments Okabe and the others were conducting, when I saw them send mail to the past with the phone wave, curiosity consumed me. And the result was this upgraded phone wave.
Name subject to change? I can hear your thoughts, assistant. I would appreciate using the full name of the device that we have all agreed upon, all of us, in a quorum.
Hashida. Mayuri.
Excuse me.
And even the leader of the Future Gadget Laboratory, the self-proclaimed notorious mad scientist Hoen Kyoma, Okabe. None of them could bring themselves to speak. I looked from face to face, seeing uncertainty in each one. But eventually, unsurprisingly, the first to speak was Okabe.
So, pepperoni, sauce, meat lovers. I can get a vegetable. I could go for a vegetarian one. What are you feeling, Daru? No. breadsticks. Garcia, you want a side salad here?
That's not the point. And yes.
First order of business will be coming up with an official name.
All things considered, the way he directs everyone else around him is very leader-like. That said, given that his first reaction is for us to come up with a name, tells me that he's not taking this seriously enough. Eventually, we decided that the upgraded phone wave would be given the name of Time Leap Machine, though that was also subject to change.
I can hear the sarcasm in your internal monologue, assistant.
Okabe came up with a far more Chunibyo name during the process, but ultimately Mayuri chose the simple name that I proposed. Then, at Okabe's urging, I proceeded to explain how the Time Leap machine functions. Essentially, this device converts one's memories into data, passes that data through a ringularity, and sends it to the past.
Oh, I like that one you've just come up with, assistant. You'll go far in this business.
Beep, beep, beep.
Hippocampus.
Hippo.
Scan memory data. Encode nerve impulse electrical signal. Time leap machine. Upload. 40-50 seconds. CERN. Generate black hole with LHC. Use black hole to compress. Retrieve. 23 milliseconds. Time leap machine. Time leap. Basically like Gmail. Beep, beep, beep. Receive. Memory data.
The receiver will then acquire the memories of their future self. The Time Leap machine's biggest innovation, as stated previously, is the ability to send the user's memories into the past. To transcend time, something must pass through a ringularity. Simply put, the area near a black hole. If anything physical attempted this, it would be crushed by the black hole's supergravity. Suffice it to say, physical objects won't be traveling through time anytime soon.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just thought I'd come by and check out what's going on in the lab today.
However, we were able to circumvent this issue by converting the user's memory into data and sending that data through the ringularity. And that was only made possible by the existence of CERN's LHC.
This area is not scale.
Yeah. Hashida's hacking gave us the ability to manipulate the LHC, which is able to create mini black holes. In turn, this allowed us to utilize the infinite compression of the supergravity created by the black holes to adequately compress the memory data. With this extraordinary power, we were able to complete the Time Leap machine. I finished talking about the Time Leap machine's functions and dangers, then take a breath. It seems that Mayuri has zoned out due to the complexity of the topic, but Okabe and Hashida seem to have understood sufficiently. Then, my lengthy explanation complete, silence descends upon the laboratory once again.
So yeah, like they're closing in 30 minutes, so we're just gonna go ahead and place the order now if that's actually like we could place it earlier. No, okay, I get it. The first one has to be more momentous. Could have had it fresh already.
Okabe, Hashida, and I study each other's facial expressions. It's clear that we're all trying to delay an important decision. How to make use of our time machine's godlike power. Once again, Okabe finally broke the long silence. He cleared his throat, took a breath, and spoke.
So, what should we do?
What do you mean, what should we do?
I mean, how do we use the time leap machine?
Okabe surveys the room as he speaks. His gaze settles on me. He probably wants me to state my opinion. Sitting in silence in the middle of a debate, as you might expect, is a faux pas. It is a researcher's duty to offer and discuss their opinion, whatever it may be. But I had my reasons for not speaking up. I was conflicted. Obviously, this isn't something we can freely use. As I said earlier, to monopolize and abuse an ability so godlike would produce the same sort of problems that nukes do. Obviously, the only way to resolve this imbalance is simply to give everyone a nuke.
What? No! What?
Just like everyone should have a time machine. That fixes the problem, right?
Sure. Okay, sure. Of course it does, hon.
However, it would be a lie to say that I didn't want to experiment. I wanted nothing more than to test my creation out and see if it worked. This is absolutely my ego speaking, my self-righteous, inconsiderate desires as a scientist. This is like Werner von Braun, who, in pursuing his desire to go to the moon, developed rockets for the military, only to see his V-2 rockets turn London into a sea of flame. My internal sense of what's right and my desires as a researcher were in conflict with one another. Which is why, when Okabe's gaze fell upon me, I felt there was nothing I could say. Why is this man only serious in times like this?
I use humor to cope, and this seems like a serious discussion. Right? I thought it was pretty... I'm not that deep.
I grit my teeth and inaudibly curse under my breath. This man, Okabe Rintaro, is a surprisingly serious person. Even if his chunibyo comes out in full force when he's worried or backed into a corner, when I talk about my problems with my father, or if the other lab mems are having a hard time, he treats us all with care and respect. And I can tell from the look on the face on his face that he's absolutely serious right now.
Pans over and he's just got like an echo arc face. Brunyu.
The one staring at me isn't Hoin Kyoma, but Okabe Rintaro. This isn't something we can handle alone, that's for sure. The safest thing we could do is to hand it over to a research institution and treat it as a national project, which notably worked fine with nukes.
Oh, is that how that turned out? Is that how that turned out?
The whole logic about how a time machine is as dangerous as a nuke and it'll create a horrible power imbalance and can't be abused, leading up to the conclusion, we should just give it to the government and they'll do fine. It's like, Celeb Sev, I don't think that will turn out to avert the problem you call out. Because of reasons.
I think there's some very, very good reasons why to think that won't turn out that way.
I muttered my response, knowing full well that I hadn't quite convinced myself. I want to experiment. However, there's no way we can handle something like a time machine. And given the risk involved, I don't just want to use it on a whim. I just can't wrap my head around the fact that it's real. I can't wrap my head around any of this. Well, Mayushi, that might be because you didn't really work on it, right? I guess so. It didn't seem like Hashida and Mayuri understood the enormity of the situation at first, but from the way they're acting, I can tell that they aren't completely blind to it. Which means that the most important opinion is Okabe's. What about your opinion, Okabe? And to clarify, I'm not asking for Hoen's, but Okabe's. I emphasize this last point, given that Okabe often retreats into the Chunibyo act when he's stressed. There's a possibility he would have answered me as Hoin Kyoma. Still, I think the chances of that would be fairly slim even if I hadn't nipped it in the bud. As I mentioned earlier, Okabe is fairly serious deep down. In a sense, the reason I emphasized my desire to hear Okabe's opinion was to show my faith in him. As long as it is Okabe Rintaro who speaks and not Hoin Kyoma, I will abide by his decision. That was my intent. Even if he decided to perform an experiment, I would be willing to be our test subject.
I would like to do an experiment.
Okabe said after a moment of silence. I swallowed my breath. If that's what you've decided. My resolve strengthened. Those words were on the tip of my tongue.
Stay your weapon, assistant. This will be me.
But before I could speak them into being, Okabe continued his thought and put an abrupt stop to my momentum.
But there are too many problems to actually perform a time leap right now.
His assertions were correct. The time leap machine alone had its share of problems. And that's before we get to time paradoxes. For one thing, we can't conduct an experiment with an animal or stand-in. We need a human test subject. I thought of experimenting on myself, but I have to admit I was afraid. Although I was prepared to offer myself up as a test subject in my excitement, Okabe's words put a stop to that.
Not that I'm not grooving, but does anyone consider that maybe this isn't the best BGM for this conversation? Maybe Gate of Steiner or something? We've got options, right?
I'm not even sure where the music is playing from. Did somebody hide a tape player?
No, there's an iPod.
I see.
It's attached to a device, and it's device number 14 or whatever. Don't worry about it.
He asks the other lab mems if they were willing to volunteer. Unfortunately, by halting my momentum, Okabe may have put a stop to our experimentation. There was no way Hashida or Mayuri would volunteer. And I think Okabe might have known that. The fact that he spoke at that exact moment may have been a calculated move to kill my momentum. He usually acts like he's incapable of such calculations, but I understand that his intelligence skyrockets in critical situations like this, or rather, I've come to understand that. Hey. After some half-hearted exchanges, the conversation once again came to a stalemate. Mayuri, who'd been silently watching this whole time, finally spoke up.
It's too late if you want the more dipping cups for your breadsticks. It's already placed the order, unless... No, all right.
Mayushi doesn't know much about complicated stuff, but... could we just time leap one of the bananas that Mayushi just brought home? While untenable, I could tell that Mayuri had put some thought into the idea. Her carefree attitude helped soothe my frayed nerves. Unfortunately, I have no idea what bananas' mental states are like.
And plus, there is no way that you could know. All you wouldn't be able to know is what it is like for you to be a banana, not what it is like for a banana to be a banana. An important distinction.
Well, Mayuri, bananas don't have brains like humans do. Do they?
Do they? Do they? Kurisu, don't fuck with me on this.
To be fair, I haven't looked inside every banana.
You open one up and there's just a brain inside.
That's right. As I mentioned earlier, the time leap machine needs a human test subject. That was the source of all my fears. And one of the major hurdles to overcome for this time machine. Oh, that's right. That's no good then. Mayuri didn't even try to defend her idea after my explanation. She may have been aware that her theory was misguided in the first place. So does that mean she thought it necessary to speak up to ease the tension in the air? Maybe she didn't think it so much as feel it. I fully understand, in the 2 weeks we've spent together, that she's no fool. Knowing that, perhaps my suppositions aren't too off base. I'm the one person here who seems to have a solid understanding of everything that's going on. And her gambit seemed to work. The tension filling the lab had now transformed to something different.
Let's leave this alone for now.
Okabe said, as if guided by the change in atmosphere.
We should hand over the time leap machine to an appropriate research institution. Furthermore, we will publicize it.
Neither Hashida nor I had any objection to this decision. As long as we entrusted the decision to him, that was the sure outcome. A little while later, I was finally able to calm myself down. Humanity's first time traveler. The temptation to use the time leap machine to claim that title was nearly overwhelming, to be honest. It would both prove my proposed theory and symbolize humanity's first step into a previously unknown dimension. I imagine the first people on the moon felt much the same way. But at the same time, there's still fear inside of me. Both the fear of the unknown and, worse yet, the fears passed down to me by my father. My father, Shoichi Makise, is a time machine researcher. But because time travel theory is not yet sufficiently tested, the field is publicly regarded as little more than crazy pseudoscience. My father, Papa, lost everything when people labeled him a junk scientist. He was so attached to the idea of the time machine that he lost his job as a researcher, separated from me and my mama, and was even abandoned by his best friend who was funding his research. But research often pushes into the realms outside of common knowledge. The now commonly accepted Big Bang theory and the theory that black holes were collapsed stars were both laughed at the time of their publication. Theories that we now consider essential to our understanding of the universe were thought to be junk science. That is why, as a scientist, it is inappropriate to reject things without a second thought, even if they're seen as crazy. All things deserve proper verification and confirmation. While I told myself this, I still found it hard to accept. In my mind, ideas that are too bizarre, too crazy, or too new are best avoided. To be blunt, the Big Bang and black hole theories were the exception to the rule. Most of the junk theories we see in this world end up being just that, junk. The time machine theory is certainly among their ranks. There's very little evidence to back up the time travel claims, and mountains of reasons to reject them. In essence, it's the junkiest of all junk. So as a scientist, simply the fact that we've made a time machine is incredibly stressful.
just pans over and is ominously standing on the table. Dun dun.
I don't want to end up like Papa. That fear strikes me directly in the heart. But that's not my only fear related to him. If my Papa, who sacrificed everything in his life to research time machines, if he found out that someone else had successfully created a time machine, I'm afraid of how he'd feel. It's true that Papa and I were estranged because I rejected his time machine theory when I was younger. But at the same time, that theory motivated me. If the time leap machine actually works, regardless of whether or not his specific theory is correct, nobody could call him a junk scientist for studying time travel anymore. He might even be able to receive funding from a major company again. It's hard to stand still thinking of that. I could fulfill several personal goals by testing the time leap machine. Sating my curiosity about the unknown, fulfilling my desires as a scientist, enabling my Papa to be accepted by the scientific community, enabling him to accept me. But at the end of the day, all of them only serve to feed my ego. That's no reason for us to wield the powers of a god. Okabe's decision to call off the experiment helped me realize this. I breathed a sigh of relief from the bottom of my heart. It took some time for me to accept it, but I can't help but think how extraordinary Okabe is. He helped me realize something I'd nearly lost sight of. He may be an annoying, crazy Chunibyo, but still. I suddenly look at the clock. 5:54 p.m. I have trouble reading analog clocks.
They're rarer and rarer these days, aren't they?
How is it already this late? I guess time flies when you're sleep deprived. Almost 5. Though we opted not to test the time leap machine, Mayuri suggested that we celebrate its completion, which turned out to be a good decision. It would be a shame not to have any sort of event to look forward to after working through the night.
Mayuri, not that I'm complaining, but where did you find schnapps?
Shots.
I love the idea of Mayuri being very into it.
Having one sip and being like, this is not what I thought it would be. Yuck.
Kursa coming out, shotgun and ant. Someone say shots?
I am not one for parties, but the lab I worked at in America would take any excuse to throw one. My professors and supervisors told me that we scientists wouldn't last long without them, which is why it was just about time for me to go out and buy party supplies. Okabe and I have been tasked with shopping for food and drinks. Mayuri has gone out to invite the other lab members, and Hashira has left, citing some other obligations.
Oh, this is going to be Okabe receiving...
What?
This is going to be Okabe receiving his memories
Really?
from about an hour or two from now.
Really?
Yep.
All of a sudden, Okabe's cell phone rings. Is someone calling to say that they're coming to the party, or could it be from Mayuri or Hashira?
Hello?
Okabe answers and puts the phone to his ear without a greeting. He lets out a trembling breath. Based on his reaction, it's likely that Hashira's launched into some lengthy story. It's certainly not the way he'd answer a call from Mayuri. I approach the sofa where my jacket lays, intending to swap it with my lab coat and head outside. At that moment, out of the corner of my eye, I see Okabe lift a folding chair into the air. Okabe, what the hell are you doing? Shocked at what I was seeing, I ran over and grabbed hold of him. I planted my weight on the tatami mat on the floor and reached up to catch his arms before he brought the chair down. I was so surprised that I didn't even have time to think. What was Okabe trying to do just now?
Come on, Kursa, you're smarter. You know what? I guess this is the first time she would remember have witnessed this from this side. Okay.
If I'm seeing things correctly, Okabe was about to bring that chair down on the time leap machine. Did you just try to destroy it? I couldn't believe what was happening. Okabe probably cared more about this machine than anyone else. While we decided against using it, its very existence marked the beginning of a new era for humanity. So why would he destroy it? At this point, this machine is not just our own. One could call it an asset to the entire human race. An asset like that absolutely must not be destroyed by a single man's decision. Okabe stares blankly into space without saying a word. He wasn't so much looking at me as looking through me. There's no need to destroy anything. My voice trembles. I don't understand. Perhaps this is an Okabe that I've never seen, one I don't even know. We're not going to perform any time leaps. We already decided that. Isn't that enough? I was angry, confused, and above all, uncertain. Once again, the fear of the unknown crept over me. All of these feelings mixed together and spread through my body. Just put the chair down. Still struggling with how to resolve this situation, I ordered Okabe to put the chair down. He slowly complied. That's when I finally realized. Okabe's air had completely changed since just a few minutes ago. His face showed signs of distress. He looked like an old man who had lived a life of suffering. I don't know what happened to him, but his pained expression looked as if it had been carved from the Okabe I once knew. You look pale. What's wrong? Okabe doesn't respond to my ignorant question. He completely clams up. The agony on his face is clear as day, yet he chooses to suffer in silence. If this was his usual Chunibyo nonsense, if it was all an act, that would be fine. In fact, I wished it were. I would rather Okabe try to make a fool out of me than suffer something that would make him look like this. Are you listening to me? Frustrated that I don't understand Okabe's pain, I'd close in on him as if to press for an answer. And in response, Okabe ran. Hey, wait! Ignoring my words, Okabe dashes out of the lab. I tried to stop him, but couldn't move fast enough. Hold on, I told you to stop! Angrily shouting at him, I ran after Okabe as he took off towards the streets of Akihabara. But his head start was too great. By the time I reached the hall, Okabe was nowhere to be seen. Where did he go? Why would he do that? My head swimming with questions as I tried to intuit which way Okabe ran. I heard a door open behind me.
Oh, hey, what's going on? What's all the ruckus?
The voice behind me belonged to this building's owner, Tenoji-san.
Check out my apron. It's got a nutting television on it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you happen to see which way Okabe went?
Oh, what's he up to now? Figured something had to be given. I figured something had to be given up how fast he ran out of here.
Tenoji-san tilts his neck and stretches his shoulders with a groan. It doesn't seem like he got a good look from inside his shop. As I turned back toward the streets and tried to decide which way to go, Nai-chan emerged from the shop as well. I saw Uncle Okarin run that way. He looked kind of scary. Nai points down the road, heading to Akihabara Station. If you follow that road from the lab, you'll find a park 50 meters away that creates a T-shaped intersection. From there, the path splits. One road leads towards the Kanda Myojin Shrine, and the other to Chuodori. There's no way for me to tell which way he went. Okabe. Did something happen? No, nothing important. Just a little confusion, so don't worry. Thank you, Nai-chan. I thank Nai and run towards the heart of Akihabara, hoping to find Okabe. There's no way I can leave him in the state he's in. I had the feeling that I needed to ask him what was really going on before he did something that couldn't be undone. I scoured Akihabara, wandering aimlessly through the Kanda Myojin Shrine, the Tsumagoe Shrine, and Chuodori before I eventually found myself in an alley behind Daibiru. The sun had nearly set, dyeing everything around me in the distinctive amber glow of an August twilight. Where are you? I'm completely spent. My breathing had grown ragged. Not because I don't exercise, but I haven't run this much in a long time. A nearby vending machine caught my eye, and I suddenly realized just how thirsty I was. No Dr. P, huh?
It's rubbing off on her.
Now more than ever, I wanted a nice, refreshing, carbonated beverage. Unfortunately, since they didn't sell my favorite brand, I had to settle for a can of coffee.
It's her favorite brand?
Yeah.
Oh, that's adorable. Think of mad scientists everywhere.
I sigh as I take in my surroundings. No sign of Okabe here either. Where have you gone? I felt like cursing him out, but what came out of my mouth was just the opposite. I wasn't angry at him. I was worried. I finished my drink, tossed the can into the recycle bin, and continued to look around. I don't know why I'm so worried about him. Because we're allies. Is it because of what he said to me? When did I start taking an interest in him in the first place? I was curious enough to observe him at the start, of course, but when did that basic interest become something more? I've only known him for a few days, and my reservations have already been swept away. To be fair, I initially thought he was some sort of gangster or criminal, so those reservations were somewhat misplaced. He made me realize just how much of a facade I had built for myself during my time in America. While I've certainly been annoyed by some of my more stupid conversations with Okabe and Hashira, they've never caused me pain. Somehow, while it's hard to admit, I think I might be in love with Okabe. I think I fell for him the moment he said he'd go to Aomori with me.
Of course, you are my assistant after all, and I will do whatever it takes to ensure that you are in peak mental condition for the experiment.
Honestly, to me, it felt like a proposal. The moment he said that, time seemed to stand still. You kind of piss me off. I thought that Okabe must tell women stuff like that all the time. Otherwise, there's no way that 6 out of the 8 lab mems would be women.
Rude.
Of course, that sort of thing would make women like me misunderstand what he really means. Does that idiot even know what he's doing? Or maybe it's a sign of weakness on the part of the ones who fall for it, suckered in by a massive rush of dopamine. Ever since he told me he'd go to Aomori with me, I watched that stupid man carefully, his words, his mannerisms. The more I watched him, the more I understood the meaning behind his Chunibyo act, and the more attracted to him I became. No, there's no way I can admit that. I can't admit it, I can't, but, well, you know. He is kind of attractive. In that moment, I realized that I had given in. In that moment, I understood that being near him put me at ease. Or at least it would, if it weren't for the newfound nervousness after realizing my feelings for him. It's too late to try to control it now. I'm not the kind of person who can change her feelings once she's fallen for someone. I realized that the persona I wore at Victor Condoria University's Neuroscience Institute, that of the outward-looking citizen, was unnecessary in front of Okabe. And when I let the mask fall, I felt at ease, more so than I ever have it in my life. It's the same sort of freedom I get when I post on @channel. Okabe, being around you feels just like going on 4chan. Complimentary.
I appreciate the tone indicator, but what?
But Okabe is suffering, as if his joy is inversely proportional to my own. It's like he's unable to move forward. Though I don't yet know why, it seems that whenever he deviates from his usual state, my condition deteriorates as well. It's like I can't get air into my lungs. I don't like that feeling. Stop trying to struggle through it alone and talk to me. You listened to my problems, didn't you? My thoughts are interrupted by the sound of my cell phone.
Cursive phone. Cursive phone.
Yeah.
That's where all the
Hello?
budget for this game went to and all the new phone renders.
Oh, hey, Maki-seishi, is something up? No one's here at the lab. Without wasting a second, I tell Hashida all about Okabe's odd behavior. I initially ran after him out of adrenaline and momentum alone, but now I realize that searching for him myself would be unproductive. What's Okurin's deal? Alright, I'll ask around on my end. I'll let everyone know to contact you if they have any information. Understood, I'm counting on you. I wonder what else is on her phone.
Me too.
I hope someone out there can help us get a clue.
Let me.
All right. No mail. Wow. Inbox 0. Outbox 0. Impressive.
It was in our address book. We can't open our address book. We can't open the browser. Can we change our settings?
Hey. Same ones.
Yay! Let's do Nukari. Nah. Extremely gremlin voice.
Closing my cell phone with what looked like a prayer, I ran off once more into the sunset-lit city in search of Okabe. As I wandered the city in search of Okabe, I suddenly realized how crowded the streets had become.
Yeah. Yo, did you hear? They stopped the train over a terrorist threat.
Terrorists? Seriously? They're going to make me late for my meeting. I overhear some unsettling news. Terrorists? Here in Japan? As shocking as the thought was, no country, no matter how peaceful, is immune from the possibility of a terrorist attack, and with public unrest growing lately, they only seemed to be on the rise. Because research facilities are often targets, I've been given basic lectures on how to deal with acts of terror. But even then, I never thought I'd have to deal with an attack in Japan. Whether or not the rumor was true, the trains had been stopped. The once bustling railways now stood bare. I opened my phone and take a look at @Channel's news page to see it bustling with threads on the topic.
Is it true that a bomb threat stopped all trains on the Yamanode line, Sobu line, and Keihin Tohoku line?
ID, bunch of characters.
Oh. And then them replying.
Old news. Oh, the ID wrapped around. Sorry, I am apparently more tired than I thought.
It's all right. It happens.
It's all stopped. I'm still stuck in Akiba.
Where was the bomb?
So fake. So fake. Terrorism in Japan. Seriously. Dumbasses.
Why would anyone launch a terrorist attack on Japan now?
I'm in Shinjuku. They forced us to get off the train. The attendants are evacuating us to the shelter.
Up pics. People had already uploaded pictures of station attendants escorting people out of stopped trains. It seems like it must have been going on for a while. And in front of Akihabara Station, the crowd was so thick that they blocked the view of the road. They'd be practically impossible to walk through. What should I do? Finding Okabe in these conditions would be a challenge. But what if he got caught up in the terrorist attack somehow?
So is this going to be Kurisu's perspective then on when she gives him the heart-to-heart that gets him to stop looping and go back?
Maybe. Numerous possibilities swirl through my brain, coming and going like a hurricane. None of them are good. Anxiety, dread, pessimism, fear, frustration, unease. I can't just stand here. But I can't decide what to do. I know that acting without care could be fatal, but I can't even begin to formulate a plan.
You've got mail.
Ferris-san, she's lab member 7, isn't she?
Makase Kurisu-san, nice to meet you. I'm Ferris Nyan. I'm sending this to the address that Daru-nyan gave me. We found Okabe-san, but he's acting strange. We should hurry meet up somewhere. Meet up somewhere. Where's good for you?
I haven't done Ferris voice in a while. That's off. I need to...
They found Okabe after all, thank goodness. But the part where she said he's acting strange disturbs me. I didn't know why, but a chill slowly ran down my spine. Nice to meet you. This is Makise. It'd be a huge help if you could bring Okabe to the lab. I'll head there now. Definitely that is the correct location to bring everybody on this particular day and time.
Yep.
I replied to her email and took a breath. My chest feels like it's going to be crushed with worry. Okabe, what happened to you? Dragging my tired feet, I walked back the way I came. I rendezvoused at the lab to find Okabe, a petite maid, and a middle-aged butler waiting for me. I assumed that the maid was Ferris-san.
Howdy, Nyan.
There it is.
The middle-aged butler, on the other hand, was a mystery to me. He looked as though he'd stepped right out of a manga or an anime. Okabe looks worn out to the point that it doesn't seem like he can even stand on his own. Ferris-san and the butler are holding him up with their shoulders. Okabe. I rushed towards him without thinking.
Are you Makise-san?
I am. Thank you, Ferris-san, for finding Okabe. Hashida had told me before that this girl was the Rainet champion and that Ferris Nyan was a stage name of sorts.
Not at all. As soon as Nyan told me what was going on, I couldn't just twiddle my thumbs.
Do cats have thumbs?
They do now.
I see.
Fucked up, right? I didn't know all the details, but I knew I needed to find him, Nyan. For some reason, though, I haven't heard from Nyan in a while.
Does she mean Hashida? Could he still be searching for Okabe? Let's put that aside for now. And Okabe, is he...
He's a little calmer now, but when we spotted him at the UPX bridge, we really thought he was about to die.
Does this look like the face of a man who's about to die?
His face is as white as a sheet of paper now, so hearing that he was in even worse condition earlier makes my heart ache. Okabe's thoughts, his feelings, I have to find out what's going through his head. Okabe, what happened? But Okabe just stares at nothing. He doesn't make any effort to look at me. There's no use in wasting our time out here. Come on, let's go up to the lab. We asked the butler to shoulder the hollow-eyed Okabe for us and made our way into the lab. I turned on the lights and was greeted by a horrifying sight. What the hell? Blood stains on the floor.
Huh? What? Why?
Ferris-san gasps behind me, but her reaction was nothing compared to Okabe. Quite a choice squeezing it all onto one line so the characters become very thin.
That was definitely a choice. Mayuri, I'm so sorry.
His scream echoes through the lab. He curls into the fetal position, weeping as he calls Mayuri's name. Okabe.
Hyoma!
We stood frozen, unsure of how to approach Okabe in this situation. But in the middle of the chaos, the butler alone calmly surveyed the room.
Excuse me? I'll get a portrait now.
While the rest of us stood in shocked silence, he boldly approached the bloodstains and began to examine them.
Appears that there were no fatalities. With this amount of blood, the risk of death should be negligible.
Ferris has a combat butler?
Apparently. Hey, if everyone else can have combat maids, why can't she have a combat butler?
The butler's calm, confident declaration made Okabe stand up and rush toward him.
No risk of death. Is Mayuri safe? And Daru, too.
Okabe looked like a man possessed. Okabe thinks this blood might belong to Mayuri and Hashida. No, he's convinced of it.
Well, they certainly weren't murdered here. Judging from the blood splatter, it seems someone was struck with a metal object, but it didn't appear that anyone collapsed. There are signs of a struggle, but it seems that it occurred while everyone was standing. It seems to me that they were taken away while they were still standing. Taken away. CERN. Rounders, baby. Maybe I...
With tears in his eyes, Okabe nearly collapses under the weight of his despair. I grab him by the arm before he can. Talk, Okabe. What in the world is going on? What happened to Mayuri and Hashida? try as I might, it was impossible to keep my cool. 2 of my friends had just disappeared, leaving only bloodstains in their wake.
It's possible that I can't say for sure, but I believe they were taken by CERN's rounders.
CERN? Excuse me? Why?
The time leap machine. They found us.
My heart stopped. CERN, the European Society for Nuclear Research, the world's largest particle physics research organization. Despite their over 40 years of time machine research, they've kept their results hidden from the rest of the world. Rumor has it they've even killed the human test subjects in their secret time travel experiments. Wait a minute. If they were here for the time leap machine, why would CERN kidnap Mayuri and Hashira? Besides, how does a research institution pull off something like this?
CERN has operational forces known as rounders. In order to ensure their exclusive control over time machine technology, they attacked us during our celebration party and killed Mayuri right here.
What? But the butler just said... I looked to the butler for confirmation that Okabe was incorrect. The butler merely shook his head with a slight smile. He seems confident in his assessment. But the reason for Okabe's grim proclamation was made clear by what he said next.
That's why I jumped back to the past with the time leap machine.
Wait, then you...
I leapt through time.
My mind went blank for a moment. He had traveled through time using the time leap machine, the machine we'd agreed not to use due to the need for human testing. Though I had full confidence in my time travel theory, all theories are subject to experimentation and analysis before they're recognized as valid. That's why I felt both relief and regret when we decided not to test the time leap machine. But what Okabe just said validates my theory and speaks to the machine's effectiveness. To say I was unhappy would be a lie. For a researcher, nothing compares to the moment a breakthrough theory of hers is proven true. For just a moment, the terrifying situation I was in melted away. All I wanted to do was ask Okabe about traveling through time. But this feeling of elation was shattered by Okabe's sorrowful howl.
To save Mayuri.
Save Mayuri?
But I can't. And why? Why can't I save her? Tell me. Why is it that Mayuri has to die?
Mayuri has to die? I tremble at the cruelty of those words. Just hold on. If all this is true, why didn't you go straight to the police?
I went, but they didn't listen. What I told them sounded like absolute nonsense. Besides, they've killed Mayuri too. I don't know whether it was an accident or if rounders have infiltrated the police force or... Still, no matter what I do, Mayuri ends up dead. There's no one I can depend on, no one I can talk to. All I can do is leap back over and over and over again. I couldn't save her.
Okabe screamed so loud I thought he might cough up blood. Mayuri's death repeated over and over, leaping through time over and over again. A hellish circle of time, an endless cycle of tragedy. No matter how many times he tries to save her, Mayuri inevitably dies, by someone's hand, through some turn of events, by sheer coincidence, between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. To be more precise, apparently there was one instance in which Mayuri's death occurred later than all the others. In that instance, apparently he was shown a picture of Mayuri transformed into a jelly man around 8 p.m. I nervously checked the clock. 8 p.m. has already come and gone. If what Okabe is saying is true, then Mayuri is already... Okabe raises his voice. It seems he noticed that I was looking at the clock, which in turn drew his eyes toward it. And then he realized that it was already past 8 p.m. Oh no. Before I'm fully aware of what I've done, Okabe's mouth and eyes open wide, in despair.
Mayuri,
Never before had I heard such abject sorrow, and I doubt that I will again as long as I live. And from his shock, Okabe bursts into madness. As he tore at his head and wildly swung his arms around, the butler slowly and gently approached him. And Okabe collapsed with a slight groan. He'd lost consciousness.
Do forgive me. I fear that if I did not intervene, Okabe-sama would have dealt himself serious emotional or physical damage.
No, thank you, Kuroki. I think Kyoma should rest for now because this is too much.
Ferris-san's eyes also flood with tears. Admittedly, I hadn't fully accepted everything that Okabe had said as truth, but looking at him now, I had no choice. I want to believe him. But if I do... At any rate, we can't just stand around. We need to do something. CERN, the Committee of 300 Rounders, we were living in a nightmare straight out of one of Okabe's Chunibyo delusions. But this is reality, as the despair in front of us can attest to.
But what can we do? I can hardly take all of this in.
We have to think. Hashida and Mayuri's faces emerge in the back of my mind, and in front of my eyes is Okabe, his pain evident even as he slept. There's no way I can ignore this. Okabe didn't just ignore my problems with my papa after all.
May I have a moment, young mistress?
What is it, Kuroki? Have you come up with something?
As we struggled to make sense of the absurd and tragic situation before us, the butler, apparently named Kuroki-san, speaks.
Of sorts. While the intricacies of our current situation continue to elude me, may I suggest consulting your father for now?
Papa?
Ferris-san's father? If he's someone we should consult at a time like this, could he be a cop? But Okabe said that the police were also under CERN's direct control. Then what kind of man is he? Regardless, I'm not thrilled about the idea of relying on an adult. One can say that it's because I've accomplished everything in my life on my own. But at this point, our options were limited. And my experience as a working member of an American research institute does not change the fact that I'm not even old enough to drink. No amount of effort can make up for a lack of social experience, and I certainly haven't learned how to deal with things like this. Outside of contacting law enforcement, I have no idea what to do. And, given that we can't trust the police, that puts us all the way back at square one. Normally, I would have called bullshit on Okabe's claim that they'd infiltrated the police, but the desperation in his eyes convinced me otherwise. Besides, if the terror threat that shut down public transportation was CERN's doing, we don't have much time to think. I saw Ferris hesitate for a moment, but in an instant, she steeled her expression in a show of determination.
I don't think it's a good idea to stay here any longer. Let's go to my place.
We're going to your house? Her words catch me off guard. The Time Leap machine is a prototype that is only confirmed to work in this lab. If we leave, it's going to be a lot harder to keep it safe. That said, if we accept Okabe's claims, it's kind of odd that the Time Leap machine hasn't been taken already. Then Kuroki responds to my question for Ferris.
Makise-sama, the young mistress is correct. This place may be attacked again, and I believe the best option is to change location. Please do not worry. Once we depart, I will arrange for someone to guard this place.
Ferris nods at Kuroki's words, her eyes beaming with confidence.
Wink.
The two of them seem to have the situation under control, insofar as it could be controlled. Who on earth are these people? It feels as though they're backed by a powerful organization, which struck me as rather suspicious, but I didn't have anyone else I could count on. Got it. Above all else, we can't afford to leave Okabe in a dangerous place like this in his condition. One look at the unconscious, agonized Okabe reaffirmed that belief. We readied ourselves to change location, praying Mayuri and Hashida's safety all the while. Akihabara Times Tower. It's the tallest condominium complex in Akihabara, complete with a view of Mount Fuji and Tokyo Tower from its top floors. And the top floor of this Akihabara Station adjacent complex was Ferris-san's home. I must admit, a high-end condo with its own concierge service is certainly a much safer location than the lab's Okayama building. In fact, this might have been the safest place for Okabe given everything that was going on. On our way, Ferris-san reached out to her father to make sure he was home. She told him to make certain arrangements and that she would fill him in on the details later.
Oh, Rumiho! Hey!
So does this mean that we are currently on Ferris route? If he's alive?
No, because he has to be alive by the time they get to the very end. It means because we're at the very end now, which means everyone's changed it. But that's weird then, because we haven't gone through Luca's route then, according to Makise's comments earlier. It's unclear. It's unclear.
Papa!
Rumiho, is that her real name? Ferris-san's father gave his daughter a big hug as he welcomed her home. Oh fuck, he has arm belts. I have arm belts.
Oh, so you've noticed. It looks like we're gonna have to fight for arm belt supremacy. Put up your dukes.
Tuesdays. Seeing a display of affection like this, one especially rare in Japan, fills my heart with a subtle, hard-to-describe emotion. I should be familiar with this. I know what the emotion's supposed to be, of course. But now's not the time to worry about it. I assist Kuroki in laying Okabe down in the bedroom. Kuroki tells me that he plans to call the family doctor later to give Okabe some sedatives. I sigh in relief. Then I return to the living room to formally introduce myself to Ferris-san's father. The man, having just finished hugging his daughter, smiled gently as he noticed me and enthusiastically offered his hand.
Oh, you must be Rumiho's friend. I'm her father, Akiya Yukitaka. Nice to meet you.
I shake his hand without hesitation. I've lived in America so long that it's almost uncomfortable meeting someone without a handshake. I'm Makise Kurisu.
Ah, Makise Kurisu-san, huh?
Yes, that's right. Still holding my hand, Yukitaka Oji-sama tilts his head and looks at me. It seemed as though he was studying my face. Don't tell me he's one of those perverted old men. Just as I was about to ask Ferris-san for help, Yukitaka Oji-sama mentioned a name I didn't expect to hear.
Is your father Makise Shoichi by any chance?
What? How do you know my father's name?
I knew it. So you are Kurisu-chan. What a coincidence. You have grown up into a fine young woman.
Papa, how do you know Mr. Makise?
Oh, Shoichi and I are old college buddies.
No way.
Small world, right? At one point, I even funded his research. I was the sponsor, and Shoichi was the genius researcher, our joint mentor, a professor of ours, advisor, and supported us.
You funded... I feel like I've heard this story before. It was the reason my family had to move to Aomori. At the time we were living in Tokyo, and Papa was an independent researcher. But the reason we had to move to Aomori, where my father still lives, is because the funding he relied on was cut off. So this man...
We kept a little group for a while after we graduated. He called it the Transcendence of the Theory of Relativity Committee. It's a little grandiose.
That's the first I've heard of that. What a name.
In fact, you often visited our home with your father, Kurisu-chan. Back then, we lived in Ochanomizu. We had to sell the place since my company was going bankrupt, but we actually had a yard and all that. You and Rumiho used to play together out there. Kind of cute.
Yeah.
What?
Does that mean Makise and I are childhood friends? Besties for resties. Besties? Besties hug. I know this isn't the time, but besties hug.
Ferris and I stared at each other in disbelief. So much has happened today that I feel like my nerves are about to short out.
Can't believe you didn't mention it, Kuroki. Didn't you realize who it was? I did recognize her, but I decided it would be more prudent to prioritize Okabe-sama's safety over discussing old memories. Oh, reasonable. And thank you for Kuroki for looking after my daughter's friend. Now, to the matter at hand.
Right. Yeah. Right now, my papa's history and my unknown connection to Ferris are irrelevant. Right now, we need to keep our focus on Okabe. I'm so sorry for asking for your help out of the blue.
Oh, not at all. In fact, it's pretty good that you did.
Huh? His tone was cunning and sharp, as if he had transformed from the easygoing, nostalgic man who stood before me a moment before.
They don't call me pink eyes for nothing. Look at my beautiful magenta eyes.
He was no longer a father, but a shrewd businessman. His gaze is sharp as a knife. His eyes are like a hawk's, taking in everything around him.
When Rumio called me, I could hardly believe what I was hearing, so I called a buddy of mine, and, well,
buddy of yours?
yeah, they manage the street vendors at festivals around Akihabara, like the Kanda Festival at the Kanda Myoshin Shrine, for example. And what they had to say took me by surprise. It was just as Rumio had said. Rounders have been interfering with both the railway company and the police department. They even tried to interfere with my friend.
My breath caught in my throat at what must have been the 1,000th shock I'd received today. It's not that I didn't believe Okabe, but to know for certain that CERN is actually able to influence organizations like the police leaves me shaking.
I looked into it while you were on the way here, and it sounds like they're blocking off the entire Akihabara neighborhood and limiting entry. May not look that way at a glance, but they've essentially set up police security checkpoints. Imagine they plan on capturing Kurusu-chan and Okabe-kun as they try to get out.
Capturing us? I shuddered. We're being targeted by a powerful organization. Given that Okabe, Hashida, and I were the driving force behind the time machine, we must be their main focus. Thinking on it now makes me even more worried for Mayuri and Hashida's safety.
What in God's name have you managed to get yourselves caught up in? I want you to tell me every detail. We need to get to the bottom of exactly what's going on in Akihabara right now.
There was a subtle anger in Yukitaka Oji-sama's voice. It wasn't directed toward us. His anger was directed toward the intruders stomping through the place he lives, the place that he's built up and nurtured over the years. An anger born from the desire to protect the town he loves, like a mother bird defending her nest.
Ah, I see. Alright.
In the end, it took the three of us, Ferris, Kuroki, and me, over an hour to tell Yukitaka Oji-sama everything that was going on. Well, to the extent that we were capable, at least. The only one of us to time leap, witness Mayuri's numerous deaths, or know anything about CERN, Rounders, or the Committee of 300 is Okabe. Under normal circumstances, his testimony would be invaluable for clarifying certain details and verifying what he had to say. But given his unconsciousness and extreme mental fatigue, that's simply not an option. It's not surprising. The shock and despair he's gone through would be unbearable, even for someone trained to cope with mental trauma. I'm only still standing right now because I'm forcing myself to think rationally, and also because I go on @channel every day and have built up an immunity to mental trauma. Which is why we ended up telling Yukitaka Oji-sama Okabe's story on our own. It was a long explanation, fraught with false starts, speculation, and clarifications, but we finally finished.
Is that how that works?
That said, Yukitaka Oji-sama's initial response didn't seem positive. He tilts his head down, frowns, and seems to lose himself in thought. He must not be able to believe it. No surprise there. It didn't come from Okabe after all. No, it's hard to believe even coming from Okabe himself. I wouldn't have believed him myself if he weren't so desperate. I would have written it off as yet another Shunibyo fantasy. Otsu.
Kurusu-chan.
Yukitaka Oji-sama unexpectedly breaks the silence. Yes?
I told you earlier that your father and I had been friends since college and that I funded his research. Is that correct?
Correct. Though I have to admit I'm still having trouble comprehending that. It was when Yukitaka Oji-sama's funding ceased that Papa's lifeline as a researcher was cut off. I remember him telling me that when I was little. But that was just Papa's perspective. Yukitaka Oji-sama must have had his reasons, but that's all in the past anyway. I don't hold any grudge against Yukitaka Oji-sama. Although Papa did take Mama and me back to his home to Aomori so he could devote himself to his research without worrying about money. Maybe that was a sign that he'd already lost hope. Of course, I know that Yukitaka Oji-sama had his reasons. Papa told me that he might have pulled his funding because his company was facing financial issues. That's why I don't intend to hold him responsible for what happened.
Then, do you know what the transcendence of the theory of relativity committee was actually researching?
There was something strange in his voice, as if sorrow, anger, and nostalgia were all blended into one. And I find myself stunned at his question. I've never been told the finer details of Papa's research with Yukitaka Oji-sama. But Papa only ever researched one thing. I can make a pretty confident guess. Yes, I know. Once again, the shadow of my father looms over me. And yet...
The three of us, Shoichi, our mentor professor, and I, held regular secret meetings in order to create, something.
For Papa and Yukitaka Oji-sama, these memories are treasures from their early adulthood.
Yeah, we were trying to create the very thing that you created, actually. A time machine.
Oh, really? But that's so childish, Nyan.
Can't you at least call it romantic or something?
Yukitaka Oji-sama told us briefly about the transcendence of the theory of relativity committee. Papa and Yukitaka Oji-sama's mentor, the professor, was the first to research time machines.
This is something completely new to this, isn't this?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't remember this being a thing, because I don't remember Ferris's dad having this big of a plot in the history of the setting.
Mm-hmm.
And I sure as hell don't remember someone looking like Suzuha being their professor.
Yeah, that's the elephant in the room. That definitely looks like Suzuha's silhouette.
So I'm thinking maybe what the implication here is that Suzuha has gone back in time and spurred this on from the beginning. And maybe tried to spur, put a little more pep in Ferris's father's step here.
Oh my god. Different world line. Suzuha is not here. Suzuha successfully got further back into the past and tried to do different things.
Yep.
That's the divergence here.
Yep.
That's what's going on.
Yep. And it looks like she's succeeded because she doesn't seem to have lost her memory if she's back there helping them out.
Yeah. It all began when Papa snuck a look at his notes. The dream of the time machine inspired Papa and Yukitaka Oji-sama into forming a group with the professor they once avoided.
Well, howdy, everyone.
That group became what Papa dubbed the Transcendence of the Theory of Relativity Committee. The professor had all the ideas and inspiration, but didn't have the scientific and technological means to make them a reality. Papa handled the actual R&D. In other words, the professor had the ideas, Yukitaka Oji-sama the funding, and Papa the research and engineering. This was how the committee functioned. In that way, it was a lot like our future gadget laboratory, where our crew centers their work around Okabe. Okabe has the ideas, I construct the theories, and Hashida conducts the actual experiments. This means Papa handled both my and Hashida's roles. The parallels are obvious. Yukitaka Oji-sama must have realized this when he heard about the time leap machine, which would explain the complicated emotions in his voice. The next generation succeeded where his failed. Did his odd tone stem from pride or from jealousy? Of course, there's no way for me to know for sure, and I may very well be oversimplifying things. He's clearly dealing with some complicated personal feelings.
I understand certain aspects of your story because we're trying to make the same thing. No, that's not quite right. It's not that I understand, per se.
This may be the first time I've heard Yukitaka Oji-sama doubt his own words. What do you mean?
Perhaps I have some understanding of CERN and the Committee of 300 from two perspectives.
This time it was my turn to frown upon hearing Yukitaka Oji-sama's words.
Two perspectives? Papa, what do you mean?
For the first, perhaps I should say our professor was acquainted with them. He conducted his time machine research in a near absolute secrecy, kept external cooperation to a minimum to avoid leaks. Shoichi fully agreed with the policy, so I was the outlier. There were times when I needed support for funding, so things could occasionally get difficult. Thinking back on it now, I believe the professor must have known CERN's true nature.
In other words, he had remarkable foresight, but then there are cases like Okabe. It's difficult to tell what the truth actually is.
Then what's the second perspective, Nyan?
Wow, I sounded just like you.
Oh shit. Sorry. Has to do with the Committee of 300, but once again I can't claim this knowledge as my own.
Again, I couldn't help but to be puzzled by Yukitaka Oji-sama's voice. Seeing the questions written on my face, Yukitaka Oji-sama spoke with a gentle smile.
Kurusu-chan, from your perspective, doesn't it seem like secret societies exist primarily within the realm of fiction?
Huh? I wasn't able to come up with a response to the bizarre inquiry, though it seems he expected my reaction.
Truth be told, secret societies are practically a dime a dozen, at least in the eyes of industrialists like myself.
I don't even know what I'm up against. Faced with the reality of his statement, my brain retreated to one of my regular @channel references. Sensing my inability to process what I was hearing in my blank expression, Yukitaka Oji-sama explains himself more simply. Essentially, it boils down to this. Long ago, before the Industrial Revolution, the publication and distribution of information was much more costly than it is now. Additionally, with society's rapid advancements and the associated increase in business opportunities, merchants realized that traditional business methods were fast becoming obsolete. Perhaps the greatest change was the unprecedented demand for banks just before the start of the Age of Exploration. This demand transformed the economy entirely. That marked the end of the old way of doing business. Small range, small scope, small margin businesses were on the way out. Faced with a changing world, the wealthy, in order to protect their profits, searched for ways to construct unions to mutually benefit one another. But these weren't like national unions. The organizations were closed off to the majority of society. Some of them kept their very existence a secret in order to protect their members and activities. These organizations later became known as secret societies.
Holy blood? From September 1912?
Naturally, there are non-economic secret societies too. For example, Italy's famous Sicilian Mafia was originally a rebel organization that fought against oppression from the mainland. Moreover, the Knights Templar, a centerpiece of numerous conspiracy theories, is not an actual secret society. The belief that the Templars operate in secret to this day is largely due to France declaring members of their order heretics. Outside of France, however, they operated in plain sight. Most notably in Portugal, where the king became a member of the Knights Templar, uniting the country and the organization as one. In other words, present-day Portugal is the Knights Templar. One can hardly call Portugal a secret society.
Be sure about that. Have you ever actually been to Portugal? Can you say for sure that it exists? What if I told you Iberia just kind of ended?
The Soviet Union, which collapsed before I was born, was originally a secret society. A society that sparked a revolution and turned itself into a nation.
While you may not be aware of them, many secret societies exist today, and they're influencing our world. But it's not that anything particularly special, quite the contrary, in fact. I'm not sure that you're aware, but your lab is, in a way, a secret society too. That's something you need to understand.
To be honest, his words shook me. I'd always thought secret societies were nothing but delusional fantasies thought up by conspiracy theorists in Chunibyo.
Yes, and?
But apparently there are many secret societies influencing the governments of developed countries, simply by voting. Of course, there are still many profit-seeking secret societies whose ambitions don't extend beyond wealth.
The Committee of 300 is the same. I don't know where they rank globally, but they're certainly significant. In terms of business, it would not be wise to pick a fight with them. We don't know their motives, their scale, or their methods. Actually, I think we can safely assume their scale, come to think of it. Not knowing how they think is especially damaging. If I can find a way to barter some sort of mutually beneficial agreement, I might be able to reason with them, but it's impossible without knowing what they want.
Papa?
Ferris-san's question is ripe with concern. In response, the corners of Yukitaka Oji-sama's lips curl up.
However, we cannot allow these people to do whatever they want in our Akihabara. They will pay for this.
At that point, I finally understood. Yukitaka Oji-sama was angry.
Turf war! No? Please excuse me.
As he answers the phone that rang abruptly, Yukitaka Oji-sama dons a slight smile. Then he addresses us as he hangs up.
Did he just time leave? No, I guess not. It seems that we have a lead. We captured one of the rounders that you mentioned.
Captured? Okabe had said that the rounders killed Mairi. And we captured one of these relentless murderers? What kind of man is Yukitaka Oji-sama? It feels like we're stepping outside of reality.
Ferris just quietly going wide-eyed for this entire conversation.
Maybe all of this is a dream. No, I can't think like that. I need to stay rooted in real life. And at this point, I didn't care if it felt like I was living in a manga. To me, Yukitaka Oji-sama's words seemed like the light at the end of a tunnel.
We'll have to see what that light is.
Next time?
Next time. Next time? Next time.
Smash that like, comment and subscribe.